It's Oliveira versus Gamrot, and if you plan on making any bets for UFC Fight Night in Rio, don't miss this video. I'm going to give you a winning strategy for all international cards and give you my 1 to 4 star bets that no other channel is going to be able to give you. So buckle up and let's get going. In the first part of this video, I'm going to give you betting edges on UFC Rio Fight Night Oliveira versus Gamrot that I promise you're not going to find anywhere else. Most of the other betting channels are just going to give you betting picks that the Vegas lines are already telling you. This video won't give you useless breakdowns that inevitably are biased towards Vegas favorites, like, "Bro, he stuffed the takedown." No. We're going to give you a betting strategy on this international card and every international card moving forward. We do it differently here at Moneyball MMA. After all, numbers don't lie. Behind the scenes, we're doing extensive research on the trends, and we're providing our own probabilities to build our own betting lines and even use AI to present the edge to you and tell you where we think Vegas has mispriced the lines. I noticed something interesting at UFC Noche in San Antonio. All of the fighters of Mexican heritage, including their adopted fighter, Diego Lopez, all of them won their fights. Now, the other thing that I found interesting is that Vegas didn't bake this hometown advantage into their money lines, yet all of those fighters won. Diego Lopez was actually the underdog based on Vegas money lines. You always hear about home field advantage like in football or court advantage in basketball, and Vegas do adjust their lines based on the home team. But does Vegas adequately adjust their money lines for a home octagon advantage, or do the actual trend in probabilities get adequately reflected in their lines? Our findings were shocking. Now first, let me describe what I mean by home octagon advantage. We at Moneyball MMA define the home octagon advantage as the fan favorite in a fight on a card. Clearly, the UFC stacks the card with favorites based on a location, a cultural background. Basically, they're stacking the card with the hometown favorites. So in this case, it was the Mexican fighters in San Antonio or those of Mexican heritage. It's clear when you listen to the crowd who the fan favorites are. We looked at every fight where there was a clear home crowd favorite against someone that was outside of this category. We searched every international card in 2025, starting with the UFC Fight Night Adesanya versus Imavov in January, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We've counted 80 fights with a non-home crowd favorite fighter versus a home crowd favorite fighter. And again, what we found was shocking. As you can see in this slide, home crowd advantage fighters who were pick'em to favorites by Vegas won their fights over 83% of the time. To put this into perspective, if favorites win 80% of the time, their line should start out at minus 400. Away fighters won their fights only 41% of the time. In the next slide, you can see that the home octagon advantage fighters won all but one fight out of 24 fights in the last 3 international cards. So the trend has clearly tilted even further to the home octagon fighter in the last 3 international cards. So in conclusion, as detailed by the probabilities of winning in my 1 to 4 star MMA picks, I don't think Vegas adequately adjusts money lines for the much higher home octagon advantage. Okay, now comes the fun part. I'm always looking for an edge versus Vegas betting lines to make money. The way I make money on UFC betting is that before I even look at a Vegas line, I determine probabilities of an event happening. For example, a fighter wins by knockout, TKO, submission. I then create my own betting lines based on these probabilities. I then refine my probabilities using AI probabilities and come up with my own revised betting lines for a fighter and the method of victory. Lastly, I compare my lines to Vegas to see if there's any mispricing in the Vegas lines. So in summary, who I think will win is not necessarily how I bet. I try to find mispricing of lines to provide asymmetric returns. This is the professional way to bet and also, say, invest in the stock market. Again, most of the channels are going to be picking based on who they think should win, which is already priced into Vegas lines. I then weight my bets based on the probability of winning and the potential upside if the bet does hit. Now I want to tell you how I weight my bet. I rate my bet 1 to 4 stars. 1-star bets are risky, very low probability, but high reward and should be 0 to 25% of your normal bet. 2-star bets are still low probability but have higher Vegas mispricing and should be 25 to 75% of your normal bet. 3-star bets have a solid probability of occurring with Vegas mispricing and should be 100% of your normal bet. And 4-star bets have a higher probability of occurring with significant Vegas mispricing and should be 1 to 200% of your normal bet. You'll notice a trend in all of my bets. All of my bets are on Brazilian fighters against non-Brazilian fighters. There are heavy favorited non-Brazilian fighters that I like to win, for example, Yoel Alvarez, but at minus 625, the line is just not attractive to bet. I also like Montel Jackson with a minus 325 to win, but the line also isn't attractive enough. With that being said, let's go to my 1-star picks. My 1-star bet. I have a heavy favorite 3-fighter parlay that pays minus 124. Julia Pilastri at minus 500, Vitor Petrino at minus 330, and Bia Mesquita at minus 650. Okay, now let's go to my 2-star bets. My first bet is Vitor Petrino by knockout or TKO or DQ plus 140. Petrino has recently moved up to heavyweight and has lighterman advantage. He's 5-2 in the UFC with 57% of his fights won by KO or TKO and 17% by submission. His opponent, Thomas Peterson, is a tubby heavyweight who is 2-2 in the UFC and who has just not fought very good competition in the UFC. The probability that Petrino wins is 90%. The probability Petrino wins by knockout is 50%. The probability he wins by knockout or TKO is 45%. My assumed betting line is plus 122. The actual betting odds are at plus 140, and my edgy bet advantage is plus 18. My next bet is Lucas Roca by knockout or TKO at plus 195. If this fight were in Perth, I'd probably select 8-1 Stuart Nickel because he's a better wrestler with limited submission and striking ability, while Roca is wild with his strikes. But Roca does have power in his kicks and finds a way to come back like he did on the Contender Series. I think Roca will find a knockout in Rio. So, the probability Roca wins is 70%. The probability if Roca wins by knockout is 60%. The probability he wins by knockout or TKO is 42%. My assumed betting line is plus 138. The actual betting odds are plus 195. My edgy bet advantage is plus 57. Now moving on to my 3-star bets. My next bet is Ricardo Ramos at minus 180. My probability Ramos wins is 80%. My implied betting line is minus 400. The actual betting odds are minus 180, and my edgy bet advantage is plus 220. Ramos is the more experienced fighter with a record of 8-6, and he's also got a 65% finish rate. Ofli just doesn't have a UFC resume, and so far he's gone 0-2. My next bet is Charles Oliveira. Charles is coming in at minus 150. My probability Oliveira wins is 65%. My implied betting line is minus 185, and the actual betting odds are minus 115. Therefore, my edgy bet advantage is plus 70. Charles is coming in with the advantage because he's 17-0 in his fights in Brazil. And while Gamrot is an extremely talented wrestler and he's incredible with his takedowns and scrambling, he's coming into this fight on short notice. Charles has a much bigger edge on his feet, and on the ground, he has a huge advantage coming in with the most guillotines, the most anaconda, and the GOAT for subs overall. I'm going with Charles. Now my 4-star bets. I've got Ricardo Ramos by submission or knockout at plus 200. My probability Ramos wins is 80%. My probability Ramos wins by knockout, TKO, or submission is 70%. So my implied probability is 56%. My implied betting line is minus 179. The actual betting odds are plus 200, and my edgy bet advantage is plus 379. And my final 4-star bet is Charles Oliveira by submission or knockout at plus 150. My probability that Oliveira wins is 65%. My probability Oliveira wins by knockout, TKO, or submission is 75%. And my implied probability is 48.75%. My implied betting line is plus 105. The actual betting odds are plus 150. And my edgy bet advantage is plus 45. All right, there you have it. Those are my picks for UFC Rio Fight Night tomorrow in Brazil. Do you have any questions, any comments? Put them below. What did you think of these edgy bets? Now remember, I'm going to do this every time for every international card. I'm going to apply this home Octagon favorite to my probabilities and betting lines. And I'm going to give you the edge. We're going to make money together and let's go do this. All right, I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for joining me today.